Okay, yeah. Hello, people. This is Meenakshi Bansal. I'm the chair of Asia and Oceania SRC. And first of all, I welcome you all in the virtual symposium. The topic of the symposium is research in political science from student perspective. Today, we are trying to gather the students from different parts of the globe. We have a Simran, she's from Australia, and we have a Annie, she's also from Australia, and we have a Antonio as a speaker. He's from Italy, and we all will try to provide a new insight on the research. Our main focus will be on the political science, as we are trying to provide a different perspective on research from political science students. So first, I would like to welcome Antonio as our first speaker. Antonio, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yes, I have some ideas, some insights that I'll talk about it now, and we could discuss about them later among us. So the first one about research in general, but also, of course, research in political science. Well, I'd like to divide the topic of research using two variables. In particular, when the fundamental, the essential part is when somebody or the researcher is choosing the topic. So how to choose the topic? Well, since there are like thousands of research already carried out, the topic we could divide the topic into two variables. The first one is the originality. So the research has to be original, or could be not so original. And the second one is the relevance, has to be relevant. So we could have, and there are research, there is research that is original but not relevant, others that are relevant but not original. Some are not relevant and not original, but the ones that we want to carry out are research that are original and relevant, and that's a hard thing to find, but that's our aim. So this is the first thing I would like to discuss with you: how to find. Sorry, I think I hear some background noises. Yeah, and so this is the first topic I would like to discuss with you: how to find a research that is original and relevant. And the second thing I would like to discuss with you later is, well, more focused on political science. I think that a viable way to which we could achieve originality and relevance. Well, there are two ways that we may come up with. So the first one is, well, study a theory. So of course, literature is fundamental. We need to have a broad base, broad readings. And so study the theory, understand where there are more theories in contrast. For example, when there are two contrasting theories, and understand them, understand the mechanisms behind that, and then find a contemporary topic, a contemporary event that could prove which theory is right. I mean, if we have two contrasting theories and two supported by relevant papers, okay, an original and a relevant contribution we could bring is to focus on a recent event, and in order to prove which one of the two theories is okay, is the most suitable to explain this event. The second one is to, but that's harder. So the first way I've just explained is easier, and as maybe it's the most viable way for students and from in particular for undergraduate students. The second one is harder. Well, it is to try to come up with a theory ourselves. And well, for this aim, primary sources are fundamental. So we, of course, need to find a current event, but in particular, we need to find causal explanation and causal relations between events. And in these phases, well, statistical tools are maybe essential. But as I said, it's harder. It's easier to like take two competing theories that are already like have already been expressed by authors and prove which one is the best. So that's just an idea. Since this is a very informal symposium, I'd like to discuss with you later about that. And maybe I'd like to hear what you think, and in particular to hear what you think about how to achieve originality and relevance in our research.
Okay. Thank you, Antonio. It was really great to hear you always. Now I would like to invite Simran. She's also the member of our Asian Oceania SRC. Simran, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Meenakshi. Yeah, I think some of the points that Antonio made are really relevant. I think it's hard when you're talking about originality. Of course, relevancy is something that any researcher wants to put at the forefront of whatever their project is, because then what's the point, right? Like when you're writing something, you wouldn't want it to be relevant and topical. I think with originality, it's hard, especially like most of us here are undergrad students. It's hard for us to achieve 100% originality just because with like the positions that we're in, we obviously don't have access to a lot of the resources like data or whatever that maybe, you know, researchers who are actually actively in the field would have. And I think in that way, a lot of us would, in whatever research that we do, we rely on a lot of secondary data, you know, that's collected by other people already. And then I think in that way, it makes it a little bit harder for us to come up with ideas or theories or arguments that are, you know, 100% original. But then I think obviously as we get out into the field, you know, like out of university, we're obviously going to have more opportunities to figure, like, you know, if we end up doing like research-based work once we graduate, more opportunities to, you know, do our own research and find points and things that we, you know, see that is not what's currently presented in literature. But then I think also, in a way, it like, if you think about on the other hand, all researchers, they have different ways of looking at things and different perspectives of seeing an issue. So even if we currently, if we're like writing a paper and we're looking at the research that's already there and the literature that's already there, yes, obviously our papers are going to in some way reflect whatever is out there already, because that's what's available to us. But then I think when we're, you know, analyzing data, statistics, whatever, in our own way, it's going to come up sort of different, because maybe we're going to catch different things and, you know, pay attention to different elements of data that maybe other researchers haven't caught on. So I think in that way, it's kind of it makes the margin a bit wider in terms of like how original we can be, because obviously, yeah, again, every researcher is different, right? And like how they think. So yeah, I think that also is like another point. But yeah, I think one of the main, I think for me anyway, and I'm sure like most of you can relate, being like an undergrad student who does like research, one of the challenges that I've come to find, which kind of extends, I guess, off the whole idea of like originality and relevancy, is just like finding or being able to be in charge of like what sort of data you collect. I found that when I'm like doing my own research and like writing my own papers, one of the things that I often kind of find as a boundary is this, you know, collecting my own research and making it very specific to the kinds of things I want to research or I want to write about. Because I mean, now, you know, when we're writing papers or whatever, unlike those who are like actively out in different places and like out in the field, we can't decide if we're writing a paper on India, that I can't just decide tomorrow that I want to go to India and go collect data from like a rural village or something. So I think, yeah, that sort of element to research and writing is something that I found like it's been something to like navigate, to be able to find data, secondhand data that like is specific to like what I'm really interested about. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Simran, for sharing your thought. Now I would like to invite Annie to share her views on the topic. Annie is also the member of our SRC. Annie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Meenakshi. I think I'd just like to echo what Simran and Antonio have just stated. I think first in terms of originality and second in terms of access. I think when we talk about originality of work, it is extremely challenging, I believe, and extremely difficult for many undergraduate students to obtain data perhaps as easily as researchers. And I think that speaking for myself and some other members of the SRC, what we noticed is certain collection of data is only available after several months or is only available after a certain period of time. And so this can perhaps hinder research in some way, though in that respect, I guess it does mean that more patience is necessary amongst researchers or proper investigation into what resources are available in order to research into a certain topic. And I think secondly, on access, there's not only difficulties in accessing the different data available, but there's also difficulties in accessing perhaps publications or being able to publicize work in certain journals. And I think this is a challenge, especially for undergraduate students, even partly due to experience, perhaps, and also partly due to not having as many resources available as researchers to widely publish work in different journal articles, and perhaps needing to publish in student journals or smaller journals first to gain more experience.
Thank you, Annie. You were right. Like, I just want to request all the participants that we have shared the feedback form link in the chat box. You are all are requested to fill the form to get the certificate. Can you fill your correct email ID so you will get your certificate on time? And as Annie, Antonio, and Simran, the three of them has highlighted the thing that in research we have to maintain the originality, relevance, and access kind of things. Now, I would like to add a thing that I think the first important thing while doing the research is choosing a topic, because selection of a topic is really crucial. Because if we choose the right topic, then half of the research work is done. And after then, the second step should be, I think, choosing a correct journal, because doing the research is equally important than equally publishing the paper in a reputed journal. As in India right now, the trend is like the paper should be published in a Scopus Index journal, although the trend used to change from time to time, but I think the Scopus Index journal are the most reliable journal. As in political science field, we have a many reputed journal. We have a journal of this Asian Political Science Association. In fact, we have a journal of this International Political Science Association also. And my team member are also trying to publish their paper in those journals. And I think, like, Antonio, do you want to add something?
Yes, yes, yeah. Before I talked about like how to achieve. About talk about in theory how we could achieve originality and relevance, but I understood that I may have like an example. For example, we're carrying out a research. There are two competing theories now. One regarding U.S.-China competition, U.S.-China tensions. That are these two theories are like already in place, already exist. One says that the world is turning bipolar, is returning bipolar, while the other one says not. There are competitions, there are tensions, but the world is not returning bipolar. And what we did is like to analyze the voting patterns in the 74th, 75th General Assembly, so the General UN General Assembly of this year and last year. And we so we analyzed these voting patterns, and then in the light of these results, we may say that yes, the world is on the road, on the way to bipolarism. This doesn't mean that a Cold War is underway. That's not we don't think that's true, but we think that there is a polarization going on. So that may be an example of how to try to be as original as possible. I mean, we are undergraduate students, and we have, as Annie and Simon said, limited resources. But I think that's kind of a struggle. But we can try to be at least original, yes, and relevant.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, doing the research is really challenging. Like, you have to choose a topic. After then, the choosing a right data, especially if you are doing the research on primary data, then it would be really like difficult to collect the primary data, because for doing a primary research, you need resources. And as a student, we don't have much access to the resources. We are really limited to our areas. Like, to do a field survey, we need to visit different areas, and to collect the questionnaires from peoples, we need peoples. As currently I'm doing a research in our SRC, and I'm finding that people are not interested in filling the questionnaire also. Although the questionnaire like hardly take 10 minutes of their valuable time, still people are not interested. I think getting interested people in research is really difficult, especially if we are doing the research in political science. Then it is really challenging, because the political science, in political science, we are dealing with the politics, and politics is really mystery in itself. Like, as we can't define a political in proper boundaries, because the political terms get changed from nation to nation, because politics in my country is different from the politics from your country. So it is really challenging to do a research in political science. And if you are a student, like, really it's double challenging, because teachers have access to many things. They have many contacts and many memberships kind of things, but as a student we are really have a limited scope. But it is really good experience also, because as a student we have a caliber to open the new horizons in research. And as a student, I think we can give more time to research as a faculty, as compared to the faculty members. So I think doing the research in political science is really a good thing. If you're interested in research, I think joining the IAPSS is really a golden opportunity for the political science students. I think we should try to get involved in this SRC, as they are specially meant for the students who are really interested in research. Annie, do you want to add something?
Yes, I think just touching on what you've just said, Meenakshi, one thing that is that has just sprung to mind that was very challenging is, especially when you're writing about political events that are currently happening, they change constantly. And so you might be writing a journal article, and this is something I believe I've encountered along with some of my teammates on the IAPSS SRC as well, where when you're writing it at the beginning, it is extremely relevant, or they're current events that are currently breaking out. But in 3 months' time, it isn't useful to your research, or it isn't even relevant, I guess, to the main argument of your research. And so it's very important to be flexible and to constantly adapt your research in order to reflect perhaps the most accurately possible political picture that you have.
Yeah, this happened with us also, as we were doing a paper on this United Nations General Assembly, and our introduction get irrelevant over the periods of 3 months. Like when we wrote it in December, then it was like, okay, coronavirus is there, but in today's time we have a vaccination, so we can't say that yeah, corona is such a big pandemic or such a big issue. So over the time in politics, things get changes, and as like uh, we can't write about everything fearlessly. So we have to keep many points in mind, as we can't speak against government, the present government, because it is always risky to speak about openly about the political matters. Simran, do you wanna speak or add anything?
Yeah, actually, there was a point that came to my mind when you were talking about, I think it was like the challenges or something of like doing research in the political science field. And I just thought of, I had a class last week and we were kind of talking about, there was this debate that was brought up, and it's like an ongoing debate about this idea that currently like research in political science is dominated by Western scholarship and Western centric like approach to research. So I thought that was really like interesting, because I never really thought about it. Like, you know, you're studying in like a Western country, you don't really think twice about, you know, how the practices and processes of like research and of research like are different like on the other side of the world, and how like those differences actually have like a big impact. And then it was like, you know, this whole idea of how now there's this shift in, I guess, I don't want to say like accepting Western research, but sort of like moving away from viewing like all Western research and Western focused scholarship as the only possible, you know, answer to the world's problems. And, you know, this shift to looking at theories and ideas that have come up in Africa, in Asia, that explain some of the world's phenomena, as opposed to, you know, what we've just currently been basing all our ideas off. So I thought that was really interesting, especially you brought up the whole, you know, how people, you're finding it in your research, how people are a bit hesitant to participate in like, you know, things like questionnaires and stuff. And I think that kind of indicates in like a broader sense this idea of also this idea that, you know, maybe now people are like hesitant to like participate in research done by like Western scholars, because for so long they've like dominated the field and it's been their perspective that they're saying, even though maybe the data is coming from people like in rural villages in Africa, Asia, wherever. But the voices that are actually, if you think about the voices that are actually being heard in the end, it's not these people, it's, you know, the Western scholars or the people from the other side who are actually, in the end, their voices are the ones who are coming out, and it's their perspectives that are being heard. And also in that whole like debate, there was this idea of, well, if you think about it in the end, who is actually like, who has access to these findings? And it's not the villagers, it's not the village people or the people, you know, in the rural communities who are participating in these research. It's, you know, the people who have access to the data, who can afford to pay to like to purchase the final article, or like university students whose universities are rich enough to buy access to these articles. So I think, yeah, that's also another really interesting debate to focus on in this whole idea of the challenges of political science or research in the political science field.
Yeah, you're actually right, because the mainly scholars in political science are Western scholars. You're actually right, Smita. Nuzube, our new member, do you wanna give your views on that topic? Nuzube, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Good evening, all. Yeah, I've listened attentively. Let me start from the first speaker, Antonio, who was trying to talk about the theory and the General Assembly stuff, looking at the relevance of the whole work. One thing in research is that there are people who anticipate likely debates to come up, and before the debate gets to the heat period, you must have seen like 1 or 2 or 3 publications. And while you are trying to get 1 or 2 data available, the publication has gone haywire. And before you know, most of your argument becomes immaterial, becomes old. And you feel at the point you feel bad that, even when you Google, you see like 78 or 100 and something publications in that particular direction. So sometimes here there are difficulties in terms of getting access to data. And most times, those who have the finance be able to purchase data. Not really that the Western literature. One thing about the Western literature or the Western narrative is that they have access to most of these countries because they have access. Like the last time I attended a conference and where somebody was just talking about my country, telling me how he went to my country, a volatile situation, he got engaged with Boko Haram, and I was now asking him later on the email, how did he get the access? But because he's from Western country, the government gave him access. Apart from finance, he was able to get access where normally I myself, who's from my country, I can't get access to. So sometimes the challenges are there. Why the challenges are there, it's quite difficult, mostly for undergraduate and mostly even graduate students. Like mine, I'm talking about my own topic, my own dissertation, where I was talking about securitization. It will be difficult for me to go back to my country to get access to data, which is necessary. Now, I'm not running away from primary research. You could have given me access to data. And going back to my country and gaining access to the field where I can get those data within my tips, it will be very, very difficult. Not that it's not my country, but it's my country, but the difficult terrain itself become very dicey for me because it's a volatile situation. So apart from data, then also include funding. Then we also look at the possibility of a literature being dominated in one-sided narrative. I read a book mostly by Western literature where the person said that a particular town was discovered by a particular somebody. And that literature, that dominant narrative has been so long. And at a point in time, people from Africa questioned the narrative. But because the Western perspective has been a dominant perspective, when an issue comes up, within 1 month, 3 months, the narratives everywhere, mostly from Western literature. And then if you are doing a literature review, you have to fall back to a narrative that has been in existence for you to be able to create your own narrative. So we find that sometimes where the narrative is coming from, it takes us time to get access to material for us to develop our own narratives. And once you are developing your own narratives, you are going to make use of existing Western narratives. And that is part of the challenge, actually, because sometimes we hardly get access to data. and the funding itself. Most institutions hardly release money for funding. So before you be able to get up and say, okay, fine, you want to write about something. I was actually thinking about the vaccine issue. I was talking about writing about vaccine. And just yesterday, I went online to look about the vaccine. I want to talk about the vaccine in Africa. And hell, everywhere was filled with Western narratives about the vaccine in Africa. I felt, wow, this thing just came out recently. Now it's all over the place. So I felt bad that one, I was thinking about how to go about it in getting data, or else I have not less than more than 50 arguments on the vaccine. So I think it's challenging, but the thing is that we need to start from somewhere. Even that perspective of using secondary data itself. Sometimes you can use secondary data to present your arguments. And not only yet, the primary source where you can go and get your questionnaire and do your interview. But sometimes, if it is difficult for you to lay your hand, you can lay your hand on the secondary data. Sometimes trying to puncture those arguments, you can use argumentative narrative, trying to puncture argument. Because one thing about research is, I used to tell most people I had a discussion with, is research, trying to rediscover an existing idea. So the idea must have been there, but that RE research, you are trying to rediscover it. So you can rebuild on somebody's argument, or you can create your own argument from somebody's argument. So if the primary data is not there, now what is available is the secondary data. So we still need to utilize the secondary data itself for us to have a balance. So as time goes on, we can now fall back to primary data itself. I think that is just my own summation.
Thank you, Nazarve. You have correctly highlighted the importance of data, especially for the primary data and secondary data. You are actually right. Now, if any of the participants wanna share or ask anything, they can unmute themselves and ask the question or share their view. If any of the participants want to share their views or ask a question, they can unmute themselves. I guess no participants have any question or a view to share. I think we should, okay, I think we should end this symposium. So on behalf of the whole Asia and Oceania SRC, I would extremely like to thank all my members and the participants who have given their valuable times to attend this symposium. It was really great to share a view on the research, especially in political science, from a student perspective. It was really a great learning experience for all of us. Thank you all. I hope all of you have filled the feedback form link for getting the certificates. Thank you all. I'm ending this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.